This is HOA consequences. I saved every receipt and every timestamp. I am sending this email right now, Catherine shouted, waving her clipboard with the clear rain cover at my face, blocking the insurance letter I was trying to read. She stepped closer, her tiny body camera clipping the edge of my jacket as she jabbed a finger at the envelope. "You do not get to look at enforcement materials without board approval," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I could see my own address on the letter through the rain cover, but she angled it away every time I leaned in. This was Survey Ridge HOA, Boston, Massachusetts, where curb appeal mattered more than reality. And Catherine Cooper, the social committee chair, who spread rumors faster than the neighborhood group chat, had just decided I was her next project. The drizzle was darkening the pavement around us, and I checked my watch for the third time in 2 minutes because I had a time-sensitive contract job as a firefighter on rotating shifts, and missing today could end it. Catherine pulled out her phone and tapped the screen with her thumb, her mouth set in a thin line. "I am copying management right now," she said, not looking up. "You are in violation of Section 9.4, refusal to cooperate with enforcement review." I had no idea what Section 9.4 was, and I was pretty sure she did not either, but she said it like she was reading me my rights. Behind her, a security guard hovered near the clubhouse door, watching but not moving. I glanced at him, hoping for some kind of backup, but he just shifted his weight and looked down. Catherine kept typing, her nails clicking against the screen. The letter in her hand was from my insurance company, something about coverage verification for the property, and I needed to see it before my shift started in 40 minutes. She knew that. She had to know that. But she held it just out of reach, like it was evidence in a trial I had not been invited to. "This is HOA business now," she said, finally looking up. "You signed the covenants. Now you live the covenants." Her voice had that practiced authority tone, the kind that made you feel like you were already guilty. I opened my mouth to argue, but she cut me off. "We can tow first and explain later. That is how enforcement works." She said it so casually, like she was ordering coffee, and I felt my stomach drop. The thing is, I had heard that line before. Not from Catherine, but from someone else in the HOA, years ago, back when a neighbor 3 streets over got hit with a fake towing notice and lost $2,000 fighting it. The case never made sense. The violation cited a rule that did not exist. The fees kept climbing, and then suddenly, the whole thing disappeared from the meeting minutes. No apology, no refund, just gone. I had filed that memory away as neighborhood gossip, but now, standing in the drizzle with Catherine blocking my mail, it felt a lot less like gossip and a lot more like a pattern. "I need that letter," I said, keeping my voice level. "It is addressed to me." Catherine tilted her head, her expression shifting to something that looked almost like pity. "That is not how this works," she said. "Enforcement materials go through the compliance review process first. You will get a copy after the board meeting. The board meeting was not for another week, and I needed the insurance confirmation today." I told her that, and she shrugged. "Should have thought about that before you violated the rules," she said. I had not violated anything as far as I knew, but trying to argue felt like shouting into a wind tunnel. She turned to walk away, still holding the envelope, and I stepped in front of her. She stopped, her eyes narrowing. "Are you obstructing an HOA officer?" she asked, her voice rising just enough to make the security guard shift again. I was not obstructing anyone. I was standing on the curb outside the clubhouse, in the rain, trying to get my own mail. Catherine pulled out a pen and started writing on the clipboard. I could not see what she was writing, but she made a big show of checking boxes and underlining something. "This is going in the file," she said. "Obstruction, harassment, refusal to comply." She ticked off each one on her fingers like she was reading a menu. I felt my jaw tighten, but I did not move. I had learned a long time ago that losing your temper with someone like Catherine was the fastest way to hand them exactly what they wanted. So I stood there, rain soaking into my jacket, and I watched her pile on threats. Because that is exactly what I needed her to do. The meeting she kept mentioning was not just any board meeting. It was the one where they planned to vote on my case, and if I missed it, they would default vote against me. Catherine had made that very clear in the notice she left on my door 2 nights ago, the one my doorbell camera caught her placing at 11:47 in the evening. I had the footage saved, time-stamped, backed up to 3 different places. She did not know that yet. She also did not know I had been digging into the old case, the one from 3 years ago, the one that never made sense. I had started asking questions last week, after I got my first violation notice for a mailbox placement issue that did not exist. The notice cited a rule number that was not in my copy of the covenants, and when I asked the management company for clarification, they sent me a PDF with a page missing. Just 1 page, right in the middle of the section on enforcement procedures. That felt like more than a coincidence. So I filed a records request. It took 2 days and a formal email to the board president, but I finally got access to the HOA portal. That was where I found the old case file, buried under a folder labeled Resolved Compliance Matters. The file had everything: violation notices, fee schedules, tow authorizations, and a stack of complaints that all looked identical. Same template, same boxes checked, same handwriting in the signature line. I printed the whole thing and put it in a binder, the kind with plastic sheet protectors, because I had a feeling I was going to need it. Catherine did not know about the binder yet either. She was still standing in front of me, tapping her pen against the clipboard, waiting for me to do something she could write down. "I will be at the meeting," I said. Catherine smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Good," she said. "Bring your checkbook. The fine schedule starts at $500 for the first violation, and it doubles every week you are out of compliance." I did not ask what I was supposedly out of compliance with, because I knew she would just make something up. Instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. Catherine saw the movement and stepped back. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice suddenly sharper. "Documenting this conversation," I said, "for my records." Her face went red, and she held up the clipboard like a shield. "You cannot record me without consent," she snapped. "Massachusetts is a 2-party consent state." I nodded. "It is," I said, "but we are standing in a common area of the HOA property, and you are acting in an official capacity. That makes this a public interaction." I had looked that up the night before, after the doorbell camera incident, and I was pretty sure I was right. Catherine did not look convinced, but she did not try to stop me either. She just turned and walked toward the clubhouse, her shoes splashing through the shallow puddles. I watched her go, then checked my watch again. 28 minutes until my shift started. I needed to get home, change, grab my gear, and get to the station. But I also needed to know what was in that envelope. I walked back to my car, pulled out my phone, and called my insurance company. The customer service rep put me on hold for 6 minutes, then came back with the answer I did not want to hear. They had sent a coverage verification letter to my address, but they had also sent a copy to the HOA at their request. Catherine had already received it. She had known exactly what was in that envelope before she waved it in my face. That night, after my shift, I sat down with the binder and started connecting the dots. The old case from 3 years ago had involved a homeowner named Marcus Chen, who lived on Ridgeline Court. His violation was for unauthorized landscaping, specifically a row of shrubs that supposedly blocked the sightline at the corner. The HOA had fined him, then towed his car when he did not pay, then slapped a lien on his property when he still refused. Marcus fought it for 8 months before finally settling for half the fees and a promise to remove the shrubs. But here's the thing, the shrubs were never blocking anything. I had driven past his old house on my way home, and the corner was wide open. No shrubs, no obstruction, nothing. The violation had been fake from the start. And the person who filed it? Catherine Cooper, acting as a concerned neighbor on behalf of the social committee. I flipped through the rest of the file and found 2 more cases with the same pattern. Different homeowners, different violations, same template complaints, same escalation tactics. Fake rules, backdated notices, tow threats, and then a sudden settlement that made the whole thing disappear. Catherine was listed as the complainant in all 3 cases. The records custodian had signed off on each one, but the signatures looked rushed, like someone had filled out the forms in bulk and just gotten them stamped. I took photos of every page, backed them up to the cloud, and sent copies to my personal email. Then I called the one person I knew who could help me figure out what to do next. His name was Dan Reyes, and he was a city code enforcement officer who had helped me with a permit issue a few months back. He was also the kind of guy who loved pointing out when people were abusing their tiny sliver of power. I explained the situation, sent him the photos, and waited. He called me back 20 minutes later. "This is bad," he said. Like, really bad. If she is filing fake violations and using HOA enforcement to collect fees, that is fraud. And if the board is backing her, they are all liable. He paused, and I heard him typing. "You said she mentioned towing?" I confirmed, and he made a noise that sounded like a mix between a laugh and a groan. Towing without a valid violation is theft of services. If you can prove she did it even once, you can file a complaint with the state attorney general. But you need ironclad proof. Documentation, timestamps, third-party witnesses, the whole thing. I told him about the doorbell camera footage in the binder. He told me to keep everything organized, keep my mouth shut until I had all the pieces, and do not tip her off. If she knows you are building a case, she will destroy the evidence, he said. People like her always do. I thanked him and hung up, then sat back and stared at the binder. I had enough to make a case, but I did not have the smoking gun. I needed something that tied Catherine directly to the scheme, something she could not talk her way out of. I needed the trump card. The next morning, I got it. Sort of. I was checking my email before my shift when I saw a message from the HOA management company. It was a response to my records request, and it included a PDF attachment labeled Board Meeting Minutes Archive. I opened it and scrolled through the file. Most of it was boring procedural stuff. Votes on landscaping contracts and pool maintenance schedules. But then I got to the minutes from 3 years ago, right around the time Marcus Chen's case was resolved. The meeting summary listed a vote to approve the settlement, but the vote count did not match the attendance roster. 4 board members were listed as present, but 5 votes were recorded. I checked the next meeting, and the same thing happened. Extra votes, missing signatures, dates that did not line up. Someone had altered the minutes after the meeting. I printed the file and added it to the binder. Then I sent a copy to Dan with a note asking if this was enough. He called me back within the hour. "This is it," he said. "This is your smoking gun. If the minutes were altered, that means someone on the board falsified official records. That is a criminal offense. You need to present this at the next board meeting, on the record, and force them to address it. If they try to shut you down, you file a complaint with the state and let them investigate. But you have to do it in person. You have to make them respond in front of witnesses." The board meeting was in 5 days. I had 5 days to get ready. 5 days to make sure Catherine could not wriggle out of this. I spent the first 2 days organizing the evidence. I made copies of everything: the old case files, the template complaints, the altered minutes, the doorbell camera footage, the insurance letter timeline. I put it all in a second binder, labeled Exhibit A through Exhibit J, and I practiced my presentation until I could recite it in my sleep. Dan agreed to come to the meeting as a witness, and he brought a digital recorder in case things got heated. I also reached out to Marcus Chen, the homeowner from the old case, and asked if he would be willing to show up. He said yes immediately. "I have been waiting 3 years for someone to call them out," he told me. "I will be there." The meeting was scheduled for 7 in the evening, which meant I had to call in a shift swap to make sure I could attend. My captain was not thrilled, but he understood when I explained the situation. "HOA drama is the worst," he said. "Good luck." I thanked him and spent the rest of the day rehearsing my opening statement. I knew Catherine would try to derail me, so I had to be fast, direct, and impossible to interrupt. I had to get the evidence on the table before she could shut me down. The night of the meeting, I showed up early. The clubhouse was already filling up with residents, most of them there for the usual business: landscaping bids, pool schedules, parking complaints. Catherine was standing near the front, talking to the board president, a man named Gerald Finch, who looked like he had never disagreed with anyone in his life. She saw me walk in and her expression shifted, just for a second, from confident to something closer to worried. Then she smiled and waved, like we were old friends. I did not wave back. I just took a seat in the 3rd row, set my binder on my lap, and waited. The meeting started with the usual roll call and procedural votes. Gerald droned through the agenda, approving motions and seconding votes with the kind of enthusiasm you would expect from someone reading assembly instructions. Catherine sat at the side table, her clipboard in front of her, her pen tapping a steady rhythm against the surface. She kept glancing at me, and every time she did, I made sure she could see the binder. About 20 minutes in, Gerald got to my case. "Compliance matter, Unit 42, mailbox placement violation," he read from his notes. "The board has reviewed the file and recommends a fine of $500, with escalation penalties if not resolved within 30 days. Catherine stood up before he finished. "I move to approve," she said. A woman across the table, someone I did not recognize, said, "I second." Gerald nodded. "All in favor?" 3 hands went up. Catherine looked at me and smiled. "Motion passes." I stood up. "I would like to address the board," I said. Gerald looked annoyed. "This is not public comment time," he said. "We will open the floor after the agenda is complete." "I do not need public comment time," I said. "I need you to explain why the violation notice I received cites a rule that does not exist in my copy of the covenants." The room went quiet. Catherine sat down slowly, her smile fading. Gerald cleared his throat. "The rules are available on the HOA portal. he said. If you have questions, you can submit them in writing. I already did, I said. I submitted a records request, and the file I received was missing a page, right in the middle of the enforcement section. Convenient, is it not? Catherine stood up again. This is out of order, she said, her voice sharp. You do not get to derail a meeting with baseless accusations. I looked at her, then at Gerald, then at the rest of the board. This is not baseless, I said. I have documentation. I held up the binder. I have violation notices, fee schedules, tow authorizations, and meeting minutes that do not match the attendance records. I have 3 separate cases, all filed by Catherine Cooper, all using the same template complaints, all resulting in settlements that were never explained. And I have proof that someone altered the board meeting minutes after the fact. I opened the binder and pulled out the printed pages, holding them up so everyone could see. Catherine went pale. Gerald stood up, his face red. You need to sit down, he said. This is not the time or place for this. I did not sit down. If this is not the time or place, then when is? I asked. Because Catherine has been running this scam for at least 3 years, and you have all been signing off on it. The board is liable for every fake violation, every fraudulent fee, every altered record. And if you vote to fine me tonight, I will file a complaint with the State Attorney General tomorrow morning. Dan stood up from the back row. I am a city code enforcement officer, he said, and I have reviewed the evidence. What he is describing is fraud. If the board does not address this tonight, I will be filing my own report. The room erupted. Residents started talking over each other, some demanding answers, some asking what the hell was going on. Catherine tried to speak, but her voice got lost in the noise. Gerald banged his gavel, but no one paid attention. Catherine finally found her voice. This is slander, she shouted, pointing at me. You are making this up because you do not want to pay your fine. I looked at her, then at Marcus Chen, who was sitting 2 rows behind me. Marcus stood up. I am Marcus Chen, he said. I was fined by this HOA 3 years ago for a violation that never existed. Catherine Cooper filed the complaint, the board approved it, and I paid over $2,000 before I found out the whole thing was fake. I tried to get a refund, but the case disappeared from the minutes. If he has proof that she did this to other people, then I want to see it. The room went silent again. Catherine sat down, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Gerald looked at me, then at Catherine, then at the rest of the board. We need to recess, he said. This meeting is adjourned until further notice. I did not let him off that easy. You do not get to adjourn, I said. You called a vote on my case. I am presenting evidence that the case is fraudulent. You are required to address it before you leave. Gerald opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at the board attorney, a woman sitting at the far end of the table, who had been silent the entire time. She leaned forward and whispered something to him. He nodded, then looked at me. We will table the vote, he said. The board will review your evidence and schedule a follow-up meeting within 30 days. That is not good enough, I said. But before I could push further, Catherine stood up and walked out. Just left. No explanation, no rebuttal, just grabbed her clipboard and walked out the side door. The room buzzed with whispers, and Gerald banged his gavel again. Meeting adjourned, he said. And this time, no one argued. If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more wild HOA drama. Outside, I caught up with Dan and Marcus. "That was insane," Marcus said. "Do you really think they will do anything?" "I do not know," I said. "But I am not waiting to find out." Dan nodded. "File the complaint tomorrow," he said. "Do not give them time to cover it up." I agreed, and we stood there in the parking lot for a few minutes, rehashing what had just happened. Then I saw Catherine. She was standing by her car, talking on the phone, her voice loud enough to carry across the lot. "I do not care what the file says," she was saying. We moved forward with the tow. "I have the authorization right here." I pulled out my phone and started recording. Catherine saw me and ended the call. "What are you doing?" she asked, walking toward me. "Documenting," I said, "like you told me to." She stopped a few feet away, her face twisted in anger. "You think you are smart," she said. "You think you can walk into a board meeting and embarrass me in front of everyone?" "I did not embarrass you," I said. "You did that yourself." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You are going to regret this," she said. "I already filed the tow order. Your car will be gone by morning." I looked at her, then at Dan, who was now standing next to me. "You just threatened me on camera," I said, "in front of a city code enforcement officer. And you admitted to filing a tow order without a valid violation." Catherine realized what she had done, and her face went white. She turned and got in her car, slamming the door so hard I thought the window might crack. She peeled out of the parking lot, her tires squealing on the wet pavement. Dan shook his head. "She is done," he said. "That was the dumbest thing she could have done." I nodded, but I did not feel relieved. I felt exhausted. I went home, backed up the new recording, and added it to the binder. Then I sat down and wrote the complaint to the state attorney general. I attached every piece of evidence I had, included a summary of the meeting, and hit send. The confirmation email came back 30 seconds later. "Your complaint has been received and will be reviewed within 10 business days." I did not sleep well that night. I kept replaying the meeting in my head, wondering if I had said the right things, wondering if Catherine would try to retaliate, wondering if the board would actually do anything. The next morning, I checked my driveway. My car was still there. No tow truck, no notice, no sign that Catherine had followed through on her threat. I went to work, told my captain what had happened, and he just laughed. "HOA people are a special kind of crazy," he said. "But it sounds like you have her cornered." I hoped he was right. 3 days later, I got an email from the HOA management company. It was short and formal. "The board has requested a special meeting to address the compliance matter involving Unit 42. The meeting is scheduled for this Friday at 6 in the evening. Attendance is mandatory." I forwarded the email to Dan and Marcus, and we agreed to meet an hour early to go over the plan. This time, I was not just presenting evidence. I was going for the kill. I spent the next 2 days digging deeper into the records, and I found something I had missed before. The case file for Marcus Chen included a reference number, a 6-digit code that was supposed to link to the original complaint form. But when I cross-referenced it with the portal, the number did not match. The case number on my violation notice was the same as the one on a different homeowner's file from 2 years ago. Catherine had recycled case numbers, probably to make it harder to track the pattern. But it also meant that every violation she filed using a duplicate number was invalid. I printed the evidence and added it to the binder. Friday came fast. I showed up at the clubhouse at 5, and Dan and Marcus were already there. We went over the plan one more time. I would present the evidence, Marcus would testify about his case, and Dan would explain the legal implications. If the board tried to shut us down, Dan would threaten to file a formal complaint with the city. If Catherine tried to leave, Marcus would block the door. It sounded dramatic, but after the last meeting, I was not taking any chances. At 6, the room started filling up. More residents this time. Word had gotten around. Catherine walked in at 6:15, her clipboard under her arm, her tiny body camera clipped to her jacket. She did not look at me. She just took her seat at the side table and stared straight ahead. Gerald called the meeting to order and started with the usual procedural stuff. Then he got to my case. Before we begin, he said, I want to remind everyone that this is a closed session. No recording, no public comment. If you are not directly involved in the case, you need to leave. Half the room stood up to argue, but Gerald banged his gavel. This is board policy, he said. If you do not leave, we will cancel the meeting. People started filing out, grumbling as they went. Dan stayed, claiming he was there as my legal advisor. Marcus stayed, claiming he was a material witness. Gerald did not look happy, but he did not kick them out. He turned to me. You have 5 minutes, he said. Make it count. I stood up and opened the binder. I am not here to argue about a mailbox, I said. I am here to prove that Catherine Cooper has been running a fraud scheme through this HOA for at least 3 years. I have documentation showing that she filed fake violations, used recycled case numbers, altered board meeting minutes, and collected fees under false pretenses. I have testimony from a previous victim, and I have video evidence of her threatening me with retaliation. I walked to the front table and placed the binder in front of Gerald. Everything is labeled, I said. Exhibits A through J. You can review it now, or I can hand it to the State Attorney General and let them do it for you. Catherine stood up. This is ridiculous, she said. He is making this up because he does not want to pay his fine. I looked at her. Then explain why the case number on my violation notice matches a case from 2 years ago, I said. Explain why the meeting minutes show 5 votes when only 4 board members were present. Explain why you told me, on camera, that you could tow first and explain later. Catherine opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at Gerald, then at the rest of the board. No one said anything. Gerald flipped through the binder, his face going from annoyed to concerned to outright shocked. Where did you get this? He asked. Public records request, I said. It is all HOA property. You are required to provide it on request. He looked at Catherine. Did you alter these minutes? He asked. Catherine shook her head. I did not alter anything, she said. Someone else must have done it. Who? Gerald asked. She did not answer. Gerald turned to the board attorney. Can we verify this? He asked. The attorney nodded. We can request the original files from the management company and compare them to what he has, she said. But if what he is saying is true, we have a serious problem. Gerald closed the binder and looked at me. We need time to investigate, he said. The vote on your case is tabled indefinitely. And Catherine, you are suspended from all enforcement duties pending the outcome of the investigation. Catherine shot to her feet. You cannot do that, she said. I have been on this board for 6 years. You do not get to suspend me because of some made-up accusations. Gerald banged his gavel. The decision is final, he said. If you have a problem with it, you can file an appeal. But right now, you need to leave." Catherine grabbed her clipboard and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The room was silent. Gerald looked at me. "Is there anything else?" he asked. I nodded. "I want a formal apology. In writing," I said. "I want a full refund of any fees I have been charged, and I want a requirement that board meetings record audio officially so minutes cannot be rewritten." Gerald sighed. "We will discuss it," he said, "but I cannot promise anything tonight." "That is fine," I said, "but I am filing the complaint with the state either way, just so you know." Gerald nodded, and the meeting ended. Dan, Marcus, and I walked out together, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The investigation took 3 weeks. The management company turned over the original meeting minutes, and they did not match the altered versions Catherine had submitted. The board voted to remove her from all positions, effective immediately. She tried to fight it, but the vote was not even close. 7-1. The one dissenting vote came from her friend on the social committee, and even she admitted it was just out of loyalty. The room actually laughed when the final tally was announced. Catherine walked out in the middle of the vote, and I have not seen her since. The board also voted to implement a requirement that board meetings record audio officially, so minutes cannot be rewritten. It was not my idea originally, but once I mentioned it, they jumped on it like it was their own. The attorney drafted the policy, and it passed unanimously. Catherine was not there to object. The HOA also refunded my fees, along with fees for Marcus and 2 other homeowners who came forward after the investigation. The total refund was over $6,000. Marcus got a formal apology letter, which he framed and hung in his living room. I got mine in the mail, but I did not bother framing it. I just filed it with the rest of the evidence and moved on. The state attorney general never formally charged Catherine, but the investigation findings were enough to make her a liability. She resigned from the HOA entirely, and the board hired a new compliance officer who actually follows the rules. The new guy is strict, but he is fair, and he does not try to make up violations out of thin air. I have not had a single issue since he took over. The neighborhood is quieter now, less tense. People are not afraid to ask questions or push back when something does not make sense. And the group chat, which used to be full of Catherine's rumors and warnings, is now mostly just people sharing photos of their dogs and complaining about potholes. It is boring, and I love it. A few months later, I ran into Dan at a city council meeting. He was there on a zoning issue, and I was there because my captain asked me to check on a permit for the fire station. We grabbed coffee afterward, and he asked how things were going with the HOA. I told him everything was fine, boring even, and he laughed. "Boring is good," he said. "Boring means you won." I had not thought about it that way, but he was right. I did win. Not because I got an apology or a refund, but because I stopped Catherine from doing it to someone else. That felt better than any check. Marcus and I stayed in touch. We meet up every few months for lunch, and we always end up talking about the case. He still cannot believe the board actually did something. I told him it was because we had proof, because we did not let them ignore it, because we made it impossible for them to cover it up. He said it was because I was stubborn as hell, and I did not argue with that. We are both right. The binder is still on my shelf, tucked between a stack of old training manuals and a box of fire station memorabilia. I do not look at it much, but it is there if I need it. Sometimes I think about Catherine, about what she is doing now, about whether she learned anything. Probably not. People like her do not usually learn. They just find a new place to run the same scheme, a new neighborhood to terrorize, a new set of rules to twist. But at least she is not doing it here. At least Survey Ridge is free of her. The whole experience taught me something important. HOAs are only as good as the people running them. If you let someone like Catherine take control, they will abuse it. But if you push back, if you document everything, if you refuse to let them bully you into silence, you can win. It is not easy, and it is not fast, but it is possible. You just have to be willing to fight. And you have to be willing to look like the bad guy for a while, because that is what they will call you. They will say you are causing trouble, that you are being difficult, that you are not a team player. But when the dust settles, when the evidence comes out, when the truth is finally on the table, they will be the ones looking like fools. So if you are dealing with an HOA nightmare, if you have a Catherine in your neighborhood, do not give up. Gather your evidence. Find your allies. Keep your cool. And when the moment comes, drop the trump card and watch the whole thing collapse. It is the most satisfying feeling in the world. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all the support.